Hi, everybody. Welcome to Why Eagles Why. The team is red hot 4-0 going into Arizona. Dave Bontempo, Pete Amato, and Bill Gelman with you. You know how we do the show. 4 episodes, 4 quarters, and then overtime. Please hit like and subscribe to be notified about future videos. Straight ahead, we'll look at this first quarter. All right, looking at this Eagles team, 5.5-point favorites against Arizona on the road. What a new age. This segment is, what is that aha moment? When did you, as an Eagles fan, realize this is a different year? For me, it was week 2, Pete, when they got the touchdown to Quez Watkins. Jalen Hurts made it look like pitch and catch. It was one of the finest throws I've ever seen him toss. And that was the touchdown that made it 14-0 against a team that had held Aaron Rodgers to 7 points. And I said, aha, this is a different team. How about you? What was your aha moment?
I'm gonna have to go with the Commanders game. Just in general, the defensive play. I realized that during those 9 sacks and the way that defense was shutting down a wide receiver crew that actually has been pretty successful so far up to that point. I realized that this is a different defense. We were just using our front 4 really to get pressure. So yeah, that was my aha moment when they had 9 sacks that game. I realized that this is a different defense. All those signings that Howie brought in really made a difference, and it secondary, front 4. That whole defense just put it together that game, and that's the first time we've seen the defense come together as a whole. And there was always been a kind of a weakness in the secondary. We always had a good part of the defense, but they were like, but if we had this player or if we had this position, that was the first time I could say I don't see a weakness on the defense.
Okay, so aha moment for me in week 2, for you, Pete, in week 3 with the Eagles against the Commanders. How about you, Bill? Your aha moment.
I said aha after the comeback week 4 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the reason why I'm singling that performance out is because they had factors that were out of their control. It was windy, it was wet, it was cold, and they had to completely alter the game plan this past Sunday. And they got themselves in a 14-0 hole. Some teams wouldn't be able to come back, even though this seems to be the season of comebacks. But the Eagles, came back to the form of 29 unanswered points, where they had to pretty much give up on the passing game and the kicking game. Easy field goals in some games ended up not being coming into play in this game. They decided to go for it on 4th down or go for the touchdown. So the way the Eagles are able to adjust and dig themselves out of a hole, because this is the first game of the season where they didn't take a commanding lead out of the gates.
The things that teams do when it's a special year, that is a very good point. So that's the aha moment with the Birds. And in our second quarter, we'll take a closer look at the game against Jacksonville. Second quarter of Why Eagles Why. The Birds coming back against Jacksonville last week, winning it 29-21. A lot of elements in there, including, Bill, some Gelman's gold.
Yeah, Gelman's gold. I'm going to single out Hassan Reddick this week. First of all, it's a great story because here's a kid from South Jersey coming home to play for his hometown team. And he's just not playing for his hometown team. He's putting on a show. He had 4 tackles in Sunday's game, but the 2 biggies are 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries. He leads the NFL right now with 3 strip sacks. He's the first Eagle since at least 1950 to have forced 2 fumbles and have 2 fumble recoveries in the same game. I don't even know what 1950 looked like. So that's a to talk about great signings.
That was the Cleveland Browns and Marion Motley, for those who remember back then, and the Whiz Kids to switch sports. Okay, that's quite a bit of Gelman's goal, but that was not all you were talking about in that segment, right?
Yeah, I mean, I also wanted to single out Miles Sanders, who had an unbelievable game Sunday against the Jaguars. You know, touching on what I touched on earlier, how the Eagles had to adjust their game plan. You know, passing game really wasn't there due to the weather conditions. So Miles Sanders had a career day with 27 carries, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he's now third in the league in rushing yards. So we got all this attention on Jalen Hurts, the Eagles' offensive line. Miles Sanders has always been that running back who can you stay healthy for the whole season. So far, he's doing that, but you know he's stepping up when when a team really needed him.
Maybe there's a certain attitude about this team, Pete, and I sensed it in you. We do our texting during the game. 14-0. A lot of Eagles fans were saying, "Yikes." But not you.
Yeah, this is the first time in a while that on a team like this where they got down 14-0, and I wasn't worried. I just saw how they got to 14. I mean, it was. I mean, they got the tip ball for a pick 6, and then they kind of went downfield on us. But yeah, this is the first time since probably like 2017, 2018 that they got down, and I was like, I think they're going to come back. I'm not worried about them. I'm looking on the field, even though they're down 14-0, and I see that this team is better than the Jaguars. They were winning the little battles in the trenches. You could just tell the little stuff they were doing right in a game where the weather was awful, but they were doing everything right. Yeah, a couple of things didn't go our way, but you could tell they were winning the little battles and they were doing everything right. And I felt like when you say the cream always rises to the top, I thought that we were much better than them. And I eventually will break through and start scoring points. And that's what happened.
All right. Jalen Hurts mentioning it afterward, very proud of the team about the way they won, because in reality, this team passed a gut check. 14-0 down, Dougie Peterson back. What about the ghosts and everything like that? Mm-hmm. No, this team came back and, as Bill said, scored 29 unanswered points. More ahead in the third quarter of Why Eagles Why. Hey, it's a halftime show for Why Eagles Why. We didn't announce this, but with the breaking news, the Phillies are going to be in the postseason. So during our halftime show, what about that, Bill? Quite a celebration in Philadelphia for the Phillies.
Yeah, it was questionable whether they're going to make the playoffs in September. They had a losing record in the month of September. And, you know, I was starting to lose hope in this team that they were going to actually pull it off or they were going to back in the playoffs. But after seeing it last night and Aaron Nola pitching a gem of a game, Schwarber hitting 2 home runs, it's just like, it was great to see just because it's been like 11 years since the Phillies were in the playoffs. And I remember 2008, I was on the mound at Citizens Bank Park talking to Jamie Moore after the parade. And 2009, I had to suffer the Phillies losing the World Series to the Yankees. I'm married to a Yankees fan, so they like to rub it in. And then I went, I believe Cliff Lee's last season with the Phillies. I was at the game. And I remember Ryan Howard going down with an injury. And that's my last memory of the Phillies and the playoffs. So it's good to see. Hopefully they can do something here. I don't see them getting past the Mets, Braves, or Dodgers. But I think if they get the Cardinals in the first round, they can definitely win. It's a shame that none of the wild card games are going to be in Philly, but just to have that playoff story back again, thanks to this new playoff format, it's a feel-good story.
It really is. And, you know, Pete, we talk about different personnel. The Phillies have been waiting to cash in on the Bryce Harper era, and he's been an MVP. And now, finally, they will see him along with some other players in the postseason.
Yeah, they have a nice core of players. I mean, if you listen to sports talk radio, they should get rid of all of them. But I'm a big Phillies fan. I'm a big baseball fan, and it's nice to see them back in the playoffs. Like Bill said, even if they lose the first wild card series. This is a big step for this team because I think they have their core players. They have Harper, they have Schwarber, Nola, who pitched a gem, Wheeler, Realmuto, Castellanos, who had a shaky year, but he's starting to look like himself again. And you have Hoskins. I mean, these guys are Segura, who always goes under the radar. He's probably our best professional hitter on the team. The guy hits 300 every year, and he kind of just goes under the radar. He never makes an all-star team. So it's nice to see a team that kind of has stuck together, has been through a lot of adversity. Their superstar went down this year in Harper, and they kind of stuck it out, and people were calling them overrated a lot of times, but they just kind of stuck it, and they made the playoffs, and it's nice to see. And this city needed a baseball playoff series, so they're going to get it. And even if they go down, like Bill said, at least we made that next step. It's been 11 years, and the 11-year drought is finally over.
Phillies fans, enjoy this week, and we'll see what happens in the future. And when we come back, we will resume Why Eagles Why. Third quarter of Why Eagles Why. The Eagles at Arizona -5.5. Reminds me of the Buddy Ryan days when they would be favored by a touchdown when they went into Arizona, but it's always been a difficult place for them to play. Bill, what is your initial overview of the Eagles and Arizona Cardinals?
Well, the Cardinals, believe it or not, have a slight edge in the all-time series against the Eagles, 60, 56, and 5. I believe that dates back to the St. Louis days. I don't know. But my concern with this game is Dallas is a week away. And that's the game that everybody's going to be talking about because that's where the NFC bragging rights are. It's an island game where it's the only game on. It's going to be on Sunday Night Football. And we get to really see next week, is this Eagles team for real, or is Dallas still that thorn in our side? But you can't look past to Dallas week. You got to focus on Arizona. I'm not sold on Arizona. I'm not drinking the Kyler Murray juice. I don't think they're a good team. They don't have DeAndre Hopkins is still dealing with his suspension. So if the same Eagles team that's been on the field these last few weeks show up, I think they'll be fine. It's just a matter of, are the Eagles looking ahead?
How about you, Pete? What are your thoughts on this game?
I'm kind of with Bill on this. I don't always agree with Bill, but I do here. I think Kyler Murray can be a problem when he's on, when he's running around. They might not be able to get to him as easily as they got to the last two quarterbacks that we played. But Arizona is a different team without Hopkins, as they've shown this season. They don't really have that many playmakers on the team, and they don't seem that dangerous as they did last year. So the only thing I'm worried about is it's a West Coast game. It's the first long trip that this young Eagles team will take this season, and yeah, it could be a letdown game because you have the Cowboys next week. So yeah, it's something that the 5.5 points is probably a good line. I do see the Eagles winning. I'd see them maybe coming in a little. I wouldn't say like a little rusty, but maybe they'll have a little bit of like thinking ahead. Like Bill said, I think maybe they'll come in thinking ahead of the Cowboys game and have to jump back in and be like, okay, we got to win this game. And so it might be a little shaky at the beginning of the game, but I think they'll ultimately win this game. I thought it was going to be a tougher game. I thought maybe with their first loss until that Jags game last week. And I saw the Eagles they're the real deal. There was bad weather and they played against a lot of adversity. So that made me kind of change my mind and think this is going to be a win.
Well, I made a crazy bet during the summer. The one that I felt very good about was the Eagles 9 wins. So I slammed the over on that. And then I took a fun bet at FanDuel, $10 for when the Eagles would lose their first game. And I picked the Packers way later in the season. And friends of mine who looked at that said, well, the game you really have to worry about is Arizona. And that's this week. So we'll see if the Eagles are able to win and keep that thing going. More around the league in the fourth quarter of Why Eagles Why. Fourth quarter of Why Eagles Why. And then there was one. Well, we talk about how good the season has started for the Eagles. And Bill, there's a lot of betting love being thrown their way.
Yeah, we're talking about the only remaining undefeated team in the NFL right now. I mean, we're only up to week 5. So it's not like, oh my God, they're going to have an undefeated season, but it's just exciting that, there were 6, and then it came down to 2, and now there's 1. And it's Eagles are third on the board at plus 800 right now to win the whole shebang. The only 2 teams in front of them are the Buffalo Bills and Kansas City Chiefs. The last couple of weeks, Buffalo Bills haven't been as convincing as they were in that game against the Super Bowl champion LA Rams. The Rams played the 49ers last week, and the Rams, with all the weapons they have, they couldn't score a touchdown. San Francisco always gives LA nightmares for some reason. I don't know what it is. So, it's interesting to see. You have the Buccaneers and the Packers, who seem to be 2 teams entering the conversation, still in the conversation, I should say. And then out in the distance, you got to unfortunately keep the Cowboys in the conversation, because when Dak comes back, they have a great defense that's strong. So, we'll see how this whole thing plays out. But it's right now, we can say the Eagles are the NFC favorite to win the Super Bowl.
Jalen Hurts is 4-0 as a starting quarterback. Cooper Rush is 3-0. Who would have thought that? Speaking of your Cowboys.
Not my Cowboys.
Your Cowboys comment. Pete, what do you think of the Eagles and these odds and their start?
I think the odds are going along with the bettors right now. National and local, I think people are betting big on the Eagles. If there was a teams that I was worried about in the NFC, it would still be the Packers and the Bucks. And that's really just saying you can't count out the quarterbacks on those teams. Rodgers and Brady. We've done it in the past where they've got slow starts, or Brady's had a slow start. People said he's done, and then he comes back and wins the Super Bowl. So and the same thing with Rodgers. He came back and won the MVP after everybody said he's done, and he did the whole thing was like relax, RELAX. I think that's what he told everybody. And then he won the MVP that year or the year after. So with quarterbacks that are that good and they're first ballot Hall of Famers, you can never count guys like that out. So those are the 2 teams that I feel like the Eagles are going to have to compete with if we're talking Super Bowl, they're going to be our toughest battles to get through. But that's way ahead. I mean, it's only week 5 right now. So we got to get through Arizona and then the Cowboys.
Who would have even thought last year while we were doing these shows that we would even have a conversation like this?
Yeah.
That's the end of the fourth quarter of Why Eagles Why. A quick overtime ahead. Overtime on Why Eagles Why. Dave Bontempo, Pete Amato, and Bill Gelman with you. My game, I can't wait to see the Bengals against the Ravens. Who's going to show up? The Bengals team that has won 2 in a row, or an angry Ravens team that has lost big leads at home and their 2 losses? That's the big Sunday night game. And Bill, I know for you, London is calling.
Yeah, I love days where we have, a quadruple header, thanks to the London start time. Packers, Giants, 10:30 in the morning from London. 2 3-1 teams, believe it or not. And on one side, you have the Giants, who have, NFC East team. And then the other side, you have the Packers, who are one of the top contenders to win the NFC. They're an 8-point favorite as of this recording over the Giants. Packers should win this game rather easily, but you never know. You have the having to fly over the Atlantic factor. I don't know when the teams are landing. Neutral playing surface. Who knows? But it's great that football. We're not talking about the pregame show. We're talking about the actual game at 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I love that too. I've had some nightmares flying over to London, and then you're still awake at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then you're sleeping till 3. How about you, Pete? What do you think? What is the game you want to watch this week?
I think I want to watch the Cowboys-Rams game. It's kind of a game to see if the Cowboys are the real deal. They're going against a good Rams team who had struggled so far this year, more than anybody thought. But right now, the Rams are a 4.5-point favorite. They're playing in LA. I think that's a good line to pick the Rams. Personally, I think the Rams win it by a touchdown. But this is an interesting game because it's the NFC East. It's the Cowboys. So we're always looking at scoreboard, watching a Cowboys game. And like I said, I think it's either going to show whether the Cowboys are the real deal or they just fool's gold.
What a weekend. Morning football, the Phillies in the playoffs, Bengals Ravens on Sunday night. You've got the Chiefs and the Raiders on Monday night. We cannot wait to enjoy the football this weekend. And thank you for joining us. For Pete Amato and for Bill Gelman, this is Dave Bontempo saying so long for Why Eagles Why. And please remember to hit like and subscribe to be notified about future videos.